right, good morning, everybody. We welcome you live here to the University of Dayton Arena, the host site for the 2025 OHSAA Boys Basketball State Championships. We crowned 3 state champions yesterday. We got 4 more to crown today, and we tip things off here in Division 5 as Columbus Academy gets set to take on Lutheran East. Columbus Academy undefeated. Lutheran East, well, they've won a few state championships, and it all goes to a head coming up here in just a little bit. I'm Justin Kidder, along with the coach, George Howard. We're excited to be with you here this morning, and we're joined by TJ Petros again with NEO Spotlight. We appreciate you guys joining us here this pregame. We'll be doing this with you before each and every state championship game throughout the afternoon. Gentlemen, we got a nice little rest last night after a busy day yesterday, crowning 3 state champions. We got 4 more to go today. How we feeling about this Division 5 matchup, Columbus Academy and Lutheran East?
I think it's going to be a great game. You got 2 really good teams. I like Columbus Academy. They play great team basketball. They're very disciplined. And listen, people can say what they want to say. I've had people say to me, well, they haven't played nobody, et cetera, but they're what, 26-0? So when you can't, to go 26-0 in a high school season is very, very hard to do. Lutheran East, very talented team. They have no seniors. They have everybody coming back next year. They have TJ Crumble, one of the top players in the country, and they've got one of the top freshmen in the state in Dalen Ziegler. And I see it being a very, very good competitive basketball game.
Yeah, not only is Columbus Academy undefeated, but they've done it in a pretty dominant fashion so far. They've yet to have a game even within single digits thus far in the tournament, and they've had some wild scores when you look at it, man. I mean, they won a game 66-17 over a Fairbanks squad that beat Harvest Prep, who's no slouch by any means. So this Columbus Academy team is rolling, and they're rolling at the right time. They're led by junior Jason Singleton, who is probably the biggest stock riser in the entire state of Ohio this year. Sophomore Caden Ivory, probably not too far behind. He's been high level this year as well. And then their seniors who have stepped up huge in the tournament with senior Theo Falkenhayn, Anderson Davis, MJ Davis. I mean, they just have a plethora of guys who have just been able to make plays in these big games as of late.
Hey, that's why he's the guy, because he knows everybody on these teams. But let me ask you this, TJ. When you see the 2 styles of how both teams play, the up and down that I think they both kind of play, Columbus Academy, I've seen them a couple times. They can get more in a half-court offense. To me, what do you see could be the difference in this game between the 2?
I think that while Lutheran East may be more talented top to bottom, I think they have such incredible depth, even though all their guys, like you mentioned earlier, are young. Man, they just play a fun, exciting brand of basketball. When them guys come in the game off the bench, they don't really miss a beat. You know, they don't lose a step when they bring in guys 6, 7, or 8. But, man, you know, we talked about, you know, on my podcast, just the inexperience of Lutheran East. You know, just they only have a few juniors, pretty much all sophomores, and then 1 freshman. But, man, they slayed the dragon of Richmond Heights, and they've continued to, you know, win games. And it's, I don't know, it's hard to go against those guys at this point. But, you know how it goes, Coach. When you get to these late games, seniors find ways to make plays. And I think Columbus Academy has had a few guys, especially Theo Falkenhayn. He was unbelievable in the game against Margaretta. And then he turned around and had an even better game against Cincinnati Summit Country Day. I believe he had 20 points on 8 of 9 shooting. So when you're talking about your 3rd or 4th option offensively is capable of leading you in a game against a quality opponent, I think that just speaks volumes to, you know, the team that Columbus Academy is.
But what I will say, TJ, is that Lutheran East is battle-tested. I mean, you're talking about a team that plays against big-time Division I teams, most of their non-conference schedule. I don't know how battle-tested Columbus Academy is. I know what they are and what they've done, but when you're battle-tested and you've been through that ringer, and those sophomores went through it last year because they played last year. So when you get into an environment like this and you get into a game like this, it pays dividends.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find too many teams in Ohio that have played a more difficult schedule than Lutheran East. And, those young guys, they took some lumps in the summer, and they've turned around and, they made huge progress, I think, as sophomores and juniors this year. I think they have an advantage on the interior with TJ Crumble. While, Columbus Academy does have a few bodies they can throw at him with Anderson Davis, I think that, ultimately TJ is due for a big game, and he's going to need one. I think the swing here comes down to which team makes shots. Neither one of these teams are particularly great three-point shooting teams, and I think they're both aware of that. But Lutheran East also shot it really well in their game against Minford in the state semis. So I think it's ultimately going to come down to which team can take care of the ball, which team can make shots from the perimeter.
All right, Columbus Academy and Lutheran East getting set to tip off. Coming up here in just about 20 minutes. Coming up here shortly, we're going to send it down to our broadcast crew with the OHSAA Radio Network and, of course, our partners on Spectrum. We appreciate however you guys tune in and take in our state tournament weekend. Before we do that, let me ask you guys this. Like, usually you punch your ticket to state championship weekend, because we were talking before how last year this went from Thursday all the way into Sunday because you got your semis and your finals, of course. When you're playing in the semifinal stage last week, when you punched your ticket to the state tournament, like how different of a stage did it feel playing in a state semifinal versus state final? When you're playing in a different arena, you're coming in here. Obviously, you got some teams who are experienced this weekend, but does this feel like the semifinal? You at least get to get some of the jitters out a little bit. The final, you're right out here on this big stage. It's a different arena. It's packed. It's full. It's loud. How different of an environment has it been from last weekend to this weekend for some of these teams for the games that you guys have called and covered?
I think the state semi games that I was at, the environments were great. Anybody who was in Canton on Sunday for that triple header at the McKinley Fieldhouse, that was an unbelievable 3 games. All 3 crowds were great. I think something that not a lot of people are talking about is the amount of time in between the semis to the state championship, where in years past, teams have had 1 day or maybe 2 days at the most if they played Friday and turn around and play Sunday. Now these teams are getting 5-6 days off. While rest can be looked at as a good thing, it also can be a detriment to teams that are really playing well, teams that are shooting the ball at a high level. Giving them 6 days off, allows them to cool down a little bit. So, I think it's just going to come down to which team is just more prepared. And when you're playing a game at 10:45, it's also going to come down to which team is more awake.
How are you? Are you awake, Coach Howard? Are you awake?
I'm wide awake. I've been up since about 5 o'clock, so I'm ready to roll.
You live for this stuff.
But I will say this. For those of you watching, get ready for a great day of high school basketball. We tip it off with a great game, and we're going to cap it off with another great game. Talk about the games today, and then give me a prediction on this game.
I think the game that has been long awaited and very heavily anticipated is the Olentangy Orange Reynoldsburg game. From the start of the season, once we saw the breakdown and saw that there was a path for this to happen in the state championship game, it just felt like we were on a collision course all year long for this matchup. And usually when that happens, we don't tend to get it. A lot of people in Division II thought we'd get Lima Senior versus Westerville North. That didn't happen. A lot of the talk in Division VII was Delphos St. John's against Russia. We didn't get that. This is one game I think that everyone had circled on their calendars, and we got it, baby. And I think the environment in here, these are 2 teams that have history. Reynoldsburg jumped into Olentangy Orange's district last year. I think those guys at Orange took it a little, with some disrespect, and, they end up whooping them. I think this is a very different Reynoldsburg team, though. I think they've shown the ability to really win close games. They've been down multiple times in the tournament and have found ways to just scratch and claw their way back into games. I think it's going to be the best game of the weekend and probably the most anticipated state championship game since Pick Central and Centerville back in 2022.
Yes, and we'll get into this pregame of that game, pre-show of that game, but we'll talk about how they took separate paths, different paths to get to this game. And I spoke with both coaches before the draw, and I knew what was going to happen because they weren't going to play against each other unless it came down to this game. But actually, we really didn't know until Sunday, but they were thinking that. So they didn't want to play each other, but here we are.
Well, and you're right, because a lot of times you circle those anticipated matchups. You can see the path to get there. It doesn't always pan out. But that's our main event, if that's what you want to call it, coming up later on tonight. But that's not to take away from any of our state championship games that we had yesterday or throughout the day, including Columbus Academy and Lutheran East, which is going to be tipping off coming up here shortly.
Can we get a prediction from this guy right here?
We're not wrapping up yet.
Okay.
We're not wrapping up yet. We're about to get the prediction.
I need to get his prediction.
Real quick, before we get the prediction and turn and send it down to the floor for the broadcasters. Yesterday we crowned 3 state champions. Obviously, we tipped things off out of Division III, Louisville over Aiken. Then over Division IV, of course, with Maysville over Glenville. And then last night we saw, of course, I know that was the game you were hanging around for to get to the final of last night. Westerville North out of Division II takes care of Perry. Just talk about this real quick, just a brief summary of the champions that we crowned yesterday before we crown some more coming up here today.
I thought we had 2 incredible games to start the day with Maysville over Glenville. I thought just the pace of that one was really fun. It was aesthetically pleasing to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Both teams I thought were aggressive, looking to score. They both shot the crap out of the ball. Like, if you told me pregame that Glenville would make 2 more threes than Maysville and out-rebound them by 6, I would have told you that we'd be looking at a different Division IV state champion. But Maysville, I thought, made just a ton of 50-50 plays down the stretch of that game. Junior Gator Nichols was unbelievable, finished with 36 points. This Maysville team is just, it feels like this was their year. I think one of the coolest tidbits that I saw, so last year, Gator Nichols passed the ball in to Alex Bob, who hit a wing 3, banked it in the regional semis. He made that shot March 14th, 2024 at 7:15 p.m. You fast forward exactly 1 year, March 14th, 2025, 7:17 p.m., Gator Nichols hits a buzzer-beating 3 in double overtime to send them to the state championship game.
Wow.
I mean, that's stuff that, you can't even make up. Those guys made that shot exactly 1 year apart, almost to the exact minute. It's unbelievable.
Gator Nichols, I watched that kid, and I'm a little guy myself, so I have a lot of respect for what he does, but it was like, last time I saw a player of his size do something and take over a game like that at this stage, it was Drew Joyce, and that was many moons ago, but I haven't seen a player his size that you just watch him out there. There's no disrespect. You just don't anticipate a kid of his frame to take over a basketball game, and that's what he did yesterday. I was beyond impressed with his size and stature. He doesn't let that define him. I thought that was a pretty cool performance from him yesterday, and it's not the best performance he's had. That was just on the biggest stage this season.
I was talking to a college coach about Gator yesterday, and we were talking about that exact thing. He's not the most quick, twitchy athlete. He's not the biggest, strongest guy. But that college coach told me, he said, TJ, skill kills. And,
figure it out.
When you're talking about a guy, he's one of the more skilled guards, not only in Southeast Ohio, obviously, but one of the more skilled guards in Ohio for that class. And I think he's just the epitome of a kid who just works hard, is tough, values each and every possession, and just understands how to play the game.
All right, I know we're about to wrap things up, but go ahead and Coach Howard wanted to get your prediction. George Howard will give his.
Just for this game, or you want me to
just this game right now?
Just this game.
Yes.
I picked Lutheran East to win it all in the preseason. Everybody thought I was crazy for picking them over Richmond Heights. I proved to be right so far. Man, I'm going to stick with my guys at Lutheran East, but my gut is actually telling me Columbus Academy. So I'm a bit torn here. I think this is going to be probably one of the best games of the entire weekend. It's probably the second most anticipated game for me. I think we're looking at a game that has a ton of talent on the floor. You're looking at a plethora of guys that will play at the Division I level. Young, athletic, long, teams that can execute, play. Both teams are going to guard. It's going to come down to which guys make shots. Ultimately, I really do think that's what it's going to boil down to.
All right, good stuff. Lutheran East looking to win a state championship today. Obviously, a lot of youth on this roster, but experience at the same time. And then, of course, you have Columbus Academy undefeated, and they're looking to remain undefeated. And if they do that, then they're your 2025 Division V state champions. But we got that matchup coming up next. That wraps it up for us up here. Of course, we appreciate you tuning in on Facebook or however you're hanging out with us here today. We'll be back before our next game coming up later on this afternoon. But we now send it down to the floor for our broadcast analysts on the OHSAA Radio Network and, of course, our partners on Spectrum.
Welcome to the OHSAA.
Every day we work too.
Take the regulations on these pages
and to apply them to real-life situations.
To serve our member schools.
And our officials.
And to run the best state tournaments in the country.
It's our mission.
To serve our member schools.
And enrich interscholastic opportunities for students.
Welcome.
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 Welcome to the OHSAA. Welcome to the OHSAA.